Hello, this is Elena in my channel Enough. Today, I would say enough of imprisonment of Alexei Navalny and other political prisoners in Russia. What made me make this video is partly news about Mr. Navalny, and in a minute I will explain who he is for people who doesn't know him very briefly, and then I'll tell you a little bit what happened, and then I tell you a little bit about my own experience by living in USSR, what was happening then with political prisoners. And another thing why I'm doing it is I kind of run into some either Russian trolls or how to say politely, well, I guess it's not polite, but that's a word used in Canada or United States. It's called useful idiot. It means ignorant person who doesn't verify information and tend to believe the propaganda of some foreign power for some reason and supporting it and spreading that propaganda by believing in a made-up story without verifying it, just basically because of the ignorance helping the dictators in the world, helping the bad guys over good guys, over freedom, over democracy, over rights, human rights of people. So basically, it wasn't the first troll I heard it from that some countries of democratic countries like Canada, for instance, some people called dictatorship. God, people, you don't know what you're talking about. I personally have lived in two dictatorships in USSR and Russia. And now I, for 18 years, living in the free country of Canada, travel all over United States. I have been in 42 states and not fly over it on the plane, but literally I have been there and talked to people and saw how people live. I have been in several countries in the world beside that. And so I can compare. So this is for people who thinking Canada is not a free country, United States is not a free country, or some sort of have some sort of problems with democratic countries. This is what's happening in Russia, in one of my countries, where I am, by the way, citizen, as well as I'm Canadian citizen. This is what happens when people stand up against the government in Russia. First of all, Putin is a dictator. As I proved in my videos, you can watch about war in Ukraine quite a bit, which the whole war in Europe and now nuclear threat to Europe started from the willpower of one person, a dictator. And one of the things dictators do is they just do not allow opposition in their country. Mr. Navalny, Alexei Navalny, you could watch it right now, you're looking at his YouTube channel with 6.4 million subscribers. And this is the Wikipedia in English article about him if you don't know who he is. He is the Russian opposition leader, lawyer, and anti-corruption activist. He is creator of the fund, Anti-Corruption Foundation, and who made a lot of videos about corruption in Russia, proving corruption, proving Putin's corruption, for instance, personally. And that's what's happening in countries like Russia with people like Navalny. Basically, Mr. Navalny, this channel, I'll come back to it later in our video and tell you more about that. I won't tell you whole story, you can read about it yourself if you like, but the last development was that he was accused of white-collar crime, falsely accused, of course, because, as I hear from Russian trolls, basically the same rhetoric which was told in Stalin times. In Stalin times, people said that in our country, people don't get to jail for nothing. If they're arrested, they must be guilty. No, they're not. Many people, millions of people died in Stalin time. A whole bunch of them were in gulags, and historians like Anne Applebaum can tell you more about that. I have links to her channels in my other videos about propaganda and KGB and so on. And you don't have to be guilty of any crime to be arrested in Russia or in USSR. And so was in Stalin time, but I hear that same thing nowadays. When I demand freedom to Alexei Navalny, I hear from some Russian trolls or Russian useful idiots that, oh, we don't even have an article in the law about political prisoners. So we don't have political prisoners. This is a total lie. Mr. Navalny is one of the political prisoners in Russia. Just one example. So he accused in white-collar crime, and yet he was put to jail. First of all, it was ordinary jail, but now he moved to high-security prison. And within that prison, in this prison, by the way, it's a prison for multiple murderers, for people who committed terrible crimes, and many of them several times. That's where they put white-collar crime, Mr. Navalny, which wasn't even real. He wasn't even guilty of that crime. But even if he would have been guilty, it was white-collar crime. Yet he is sitting with murderers, and not just in that high-security prison. Within that high-security prison, they built a little, like a special prison where they hold Navalny. And that wasn't enough. Right now, I got information from several channels, and one of my favorite channels is Popular Politics, which also created by the Navalny group. But I have that information from other sources as well. That's what happened. He moved to so-called ShIZO. ShIZO is basically not a solitary, just solitary confinement. It's a bit, it's a harsh punishment prison cell, 2 by 3 meters. That's how big it is. And that's what Mr. Navalny is saying about being there. And he not just now was moved to it. He was there a few days before, and he was held there for about, sometimes for 15 days you can hold person there. And then as soon as he get out, they put him right back in. In this, it's way harsher than just a prison, just a solitary confinement, as you would see right now. That's what Навальный has to say.
Формально за нарушение установленной формы одежды, и Алексей написал пост в Инстаграме, который мы сейчас зачитаем.
That's his post in Instagram. Formally, he was put in that cell, 2 by 3 meters cell, where they put the bed up at 5 o'clock in the morning and only put it down at 9 o'clock in the evening, where he is isolated. And that's what he is saying in his post. In my room, in that little cell, there is only a cup and a book, one book. I'm adding because I already know that. A spoon and a plate are only receiving during eating. They took away my prison clothes and give me temporary clothes. Now on my back we can see big letters ShIZO. ShIZO, it's that isolator room for punishment. And for what Mr. Navalny ended up in that ShIZO? First of all, he created a trade union for prisoners. Imagine that. Why trade union? Because prisoners in Russian jail are not just sitting in jail, they forced to work there. And Mr. Navalny, with his back problems, he was poisoned, by the way, in 2020 by Russian government. He hardly survived. And also he has serious back problems. He's supposed to sit on a stool, tiny stool, and working, sewing things on sewing machines. So that's how his life in there look like. And so is the other prisoners. So Mr. Navalny created a trade union about that. And that was one of the reasons, true reasons, not the excuses. And second reason was, it's a big reason, because Mr. Navalny group created a list of 6,000 people who guilty of creating the war in Ukraine, supporting the war in Ukraine, and promoting the war in Ukraine. And several countries using that list to put sanctions on those people. And recently, Navalny group sent it to Europe, to Great Britain, for example, to put sanctions on those people. So that is why Mr. Navalny now in ShIZO, in that isolator cell. Navalny saying that a real trade union fight never could be easy. What could we say about trade union in jail? The Kremlin wants to see his gulag consists from silent slaves. And here is me. Instead of a beg for mercy, I am uniting prisoners and demanding obeying the law. That is why they called him on the meeting. And
Давайте попробуем прочитать его полностью. Наверное, бетонная конура 2,5 на 3 неисправимого злодея, поэтому принято
Алексея Навального перевели в ШИЗО. Алексей Навальный сообщил об этом и через свой Инстаграм. Его поместили в штрафной изолятор формально за нарушение установленной формы одежды. И Алексей написал пост в Инстаграме, который мы сейчас зачитаем.
Давайте попробуем прочитать его полностью. Наверное, этот пост, безусловно, этого достоин. Здесь дословно цитата из поста Алексея Навального. «Я икона осознанности». Тут я вместо того, чтобы к труду или к Путину. ШИЗО – самое суровое наказание в легальной тюремной иерархии. Впрочем, нелегальные тоже пытают, убивая чаще всего именно здесь.
Navalny is saying also the popular politics channel reading his post, and it's saying that they torturing people in that ShIZO isolators, and to get to that isolator cell, you don't have to do much. Like Navalny get punished because he did a terrible crime. They saw on the videos of the prison yard that he was walking with his top button of his shirt unbuttoned. Right now, I just committed the crime. Mr. Navalny, get into that terrible cell for torture. I probably put my button back just because I don't want to be in ShIZO like Navalny. Well, since I'm not in jail, I live in a free country, nothing gonna happen to me. But that was the excuse why Navalny get to that terrible prisoner cell.
Меня вызвали из барака на комиссию, где объявили, что на видеозаписях видно, я, находясь на промзоне, регулярно расстегиваю верхнюю пуговицу робы. Это безусловно.
Navalny is saying that he get called in front of a commission of prison guards, and they said that they saw on the video that he regularly opened up his top button of his shirt. So this was the reason to put him in that solitary isolator cell.
Безусловно, характеризует меня как неисправимого злодея, поэтому
That characterized me as a evil man who cannot be fixed, who cannot be normal. He just so evil just because he opened the button of his shirt.
принято решение водворить меня в штрафной изолятор. Пока на 3 суток, но радостно улыбнулся и у начальника. В середине сентября у меня свидание с родственниками. Содержащимся в ШИЗО свидания запрещены. Поэтому, если я не пересмотрю свое отношение, то изолятор станет моей постоянной резиденцией.
As the chief of the prison told him that, so far we will put you in this for another 3 days. But if you not improve your behavior, if you not basically give up your fight for the trade union and that list of 6,000 people who are war criminals, then it could be a permanent place. And in nearest future, Navalny was supposed to have been allowed to have a visit from his family. But for people who locked up in that isolation cell, they're not allowed to have visits at all. So you either bend to our rules or you're not gonna see your family.
Непонятно отношение к чему я должен пересмотреть, к рабскому труду или к Путину. ШИЗО – самое суровое наказание в легальной тюремной иерархии.
Navalny is saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to change my opinion about. That I have to agree that people from the prison can be slaves and used as slaves. or my opinion about Putin. And Navalny is saying, and he's right, it's confirmed by anybody who knows anything about Russian prison systems, that confinement, it's most serious punishment in Russian jail.
Впрочем, нелегальные тоже пытают и убивают чаще всего именно здесь. Устроено это так.
People get tortured and killed, especially often in those ShIZO places, in that confinements.
Так, бетонная конура 2,5 на 3 метра. Чаще всего там невыносимо, потому что холодно и сыро. У меня пляжный вариант.
Navalny is saying that that's how his cell looks like. It's a concrete cell, 2 by 3 meters. It's often either very cold, but in his case, he joking it's like a beach variant. So it's so terribly hot with a little tiny vent, and it's insanely hot in there.
Вариант очень жарко и почти нет воздуха. Форточка крохотная, вентиляции нет. Ночью лежишь
Very, very tiny window and no ventilation.
и чувствуешь себя рыбой на берегу. Железная койка пристегивается к стене.
At night you lay down and feel like a fish which thrown out on the beach. And the bed getting attached to the wall.
В 5 утра забирают матрас и подушку. И это называется мягкий инвентарь.
At 5 o'clock they taking away your mattress and a pillow.
И поднимают койку.
And lift up
В
the
9
bed.
вечера койку снова опускают. Железный стол и лавка. Раковина.
At 9 o'clock in the evening they coming back and they put your shelf, like your bed down so you can lay down. And metal table and the sink.
Дырка в полу. Под потолком
And the toilet is a hole in the floor.
2 камеры. Свидания запрещены. Письма запрещены.
And there is a camera under the ceiling. It's forbidden to see your relatives. It's forbidden to send any mails.
Передачи запрещены.
You can't receive food or any parcels from home.
Единственное место в тюрьме, где даже курение запрещено.
Smoking is forbidden. The only place in the jail where it's forbidden is that cell.
Бумагу и ручку дают на 1 час и 15 минут в день.
You can have a pen and a paper for 1 hour and 15 minutes a day.
Прогулка час в такой же камере, но с куском неба. Все время
You can go for a walks for 1 hour, but in the same kind of cell, only you can see the sky from it.
обыски и руки за спиной.
They always searching you, and your hands should be behind the back.
Вот сижу сейчас на железной лавке за железным столом. Допишу этот пост и буду писать инструкцию для зэков об их правах.
Right now I'm sitting on the metal bench at the metal table and writing an instruction for prisoners. This post, I'm writing this post, and I'm writing an instruction for the prisoners
Правах на рабочем месте.
about their rights on the workplace. Mr. Navalny is a lawyer.
Пока не заберут бумагу. Права комиссия. Кажется, я неисправим.
Until they will take away my pen and paper, I'm gonna write. Well, the commission is right. It seems like I cannot be improved or fixed. So this is what Mr. Navalny said. And he was released after that cell in about Sunday evening, but Monday he was arrested again. This is the news of today, 5 hours ago.
Которая заключается в том, что Алексея Навального 3-й раз подряд отправили в штрафной изолятор. Он провел там.
So 3rd time in a row, Alexei Navalny was sent in that ShIZO isolator cell.
3 суток, вышел, его отправили на 5 суток, вышел, отправили на 7, и в этот раз совершенно однозначно и ясно сказали.
First time he was 3 days, then was 5 days, and then was 7 days. And now he's back. But now Navalny saying, at least I know why I'm there. And this is his statement. It sounds like that he's extremely politically active for a prisoner. And as I said, the authorities are annoyed by his trade union of the prisoners. We put you in jail not for the reason for you make trade unions in here. This is a quote. I read in this one. And completely mad Kremlin is because of the working of Navalny Anti-Corruption Fund and Popular Politics about that list of 6,000 oligarchs, corruptioners, and people who created a war, and proposing to put sanctions on those people. People from that list very worried, and they demanding that Anti-Corruption Fund and Navalny personally settle down. And that's what they want. They saying, do you want that we couldn't visit Nizza or London? Then you will sit not just in jail, but on a metal stool in a cell 2 by 3 meters and eat just terrible food from cafeteria, because people in that confinement not allowed to buy food in the local store. They only eat whatever they given, which is terrible food. And this is what they are afraid of. They're afraid of sanctions because Russian patriots, oligarchs, Putin himself and his family, they love to live in London. They don't want to live in Russia. Their families, which hold in their money, their relatives, their friends who hold in their money, they love to live in Europe, especially London. About probably 70% of all Russian oligarchs' money are in London. That is why we need to stand up against it and make sure that list of 6,000 and people from that list were forbidden to visit Europe, decent countries in Europe, forbidden to visit Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United States, and every democratic and free country in the world. Freedom to Mr. Navalny. And that's what Navalny is saying. And I wanted to get back to this channel as well. There are lots of videos in there which Anti-Corruption Fund of Mr. Navalny created. And you can watch different videos like Billions for the Silence, Where Disappeared Lyudmila Putina. This is about corruption of Putin's ex-wife. This is about corruption of Putin himself. You can watch about how Putin, one of the yachts look like, called Scheherazada. This is military criminal, war criminal Matvienko, who is personally guilty about murdering people in Donbass region on self-proclaimed Donetsk Lugansk republics. Because when United Nations proposed to several times, I heard like 11 times proposed to bring forces of UN and stop that war there, which Putin started in 2014. Matvienko personally said that it's not logical, apparently. Meanwhile, she and her son has a beautiful villa in Italy, which you can see in this video, perfectly proven about that. And many of the videos has English subtitles. All you have to do is just click on the closed captions and you will see it with English subtitles. And there are so many other videos about Anti-Corruption Fund. After watching these videos, you will find out why Navalny is in jail, what do they want from him, and I would go for these videos mostly. They have English subtitles, this one for sure, and so on. So this is why Russian oligarchs are afraid of Navalny. This is why Putin is afraid of Navalny. Navalny just one of the political prisoners. He's not the only one. This is the list where people can write to political prisoners. This is Mr. Yashin Ilya, 1983, he was born. Skachelenko Alexandra, Zhdanov Yuri, born in 1954, and all the Mr. Zhdanov is guilty of is because he's the father of Ivan Zhdanov, which is one of the directors of Anti-Corruption Fund, and also a lawyer. And sometimes he's one of the people who is hosts of Popular Politics, like we can see. Zelensky Pavel, 1981. Daniel Холодный, 1997 was born. Chanisheva Lilia Ayratovna, Боровиков Андрей, Astanin Vadim. This is just a few people who are political prisoners in Russia. Freedom to political prisoners in Russia, freedom to Navalny, freedom to Russian people from Putin's regime. Putin's regime will fall, Ukraine will be free, and so will be my country, Russia. And people who is thinking that Canada is not a free country, I can propose to contact me. I'll arrange you to immigrate to Russia, where you will enjoy all the freedoms Russian people have, which isn't many. And according to what happened to Mr. Navalny and the political prisoners, some of those prisoners, like Mr. Gorinov, got 7 years in jail just because for calling war a war. Some of them getting 15 years in jail for the same thing, for just reposting something, for a couple tweets. And you can enjoy your freedom in Russia. I can help you with that. Let's all of us be free, and I hope Russia will someday as free country as Canada, at least, maybe even more free country, which is hard to imagine. Canada is free as it gets. Thank you for your attention, and have a great day. Penalty isolators, cells. Only it was even worse. People in there wasn't allowed even to go for walks. People wasn't allowed to even eat every day. They were fed every second day, which was eventually called by its name as a torture by hunger. And it was stopped eventually, but it was continued even in 1988, and some of it was until 1992. It wasn't even stopped. People didn't receive any mails, people couldn't talk to anyone, and lots of other things were happening to people there. But it wasn't the worst part, which could happen in USSR to people like Navalny and other citizens who disagree with the Soviet regime. They were put in psychiatric wards where the healthy people were treated with heavy psychiatric drugs, which the world used for people with real serious psychiatric problems like schizophrenia and so on. When they were turned into basically vegetables, just because they disagree with Soviet regime. Soviet regime was considered that people in normal mind cannot be against Soviet regime. If they're against, they must be not normal, they must be crazy. That's why they were put in psychiatric wards. How do I know that? I lived in Siberia. At the time I was a child, but I knew through adults who I knew, and eventually they told me about that such psychiatric wards was near the place where we lived, and they were healthy people there, and they were treated badly just because they were against the Soviet regime. So I don't agree with that. I am against it. I think in every normal country there are different people, and people have different opinions. In democratic world, I've never seen when everybody 100% agree with everything and vote what the government told them to do. This is wrong. People should have rights to their opinion, and they should have rights to be in opposition. And it's normal, and that's how it's supposed to be. And this is how it is in Canada, this is how it is in the United States, and in every democratic country in the world. I was witnessed elections in Canada where people would disagree with some leader or another, and they elected another one. And that was happened through the whole history of Canada as a state. And people could say anything they want in Canada, and they could be against the party who is ruling at this moment, or a leading party, or a prime minister of Canada, and nothing gonna happen to them. What happened to Navalny, this is what happened in dictatorships. And there is no comparison about that. So this is how it is, no matter we like it or not. And we will fight about that in Russia and in other countries in the world. And I will do my personal best that oligarchs will not enter any decent country. They made life in Russia miserable, let them live there themselves. They would not go to civilized countries and democratic countries to enjoy their life while Russian people are suffering. And that's where I stand. And I demand freedom to Navalny and all political prisoners.